week, on the 7th of November, we were invited to Courtyard Marriott to a watch party. So the students watched Mr. Obama's speech and heard, and Mr. Romney's, and so they were there since 7 a.m. you know, in the courtyard. So they were so excited that I think this excitement, emotions arose a lot of questions in them. So Mr. Ambassador consented to answer their questions. At first, probably you will address the audience, our participants of conference. Thank you.
Thank you, Tamara, and congratulations to you on establishing this American Studies Department. Congratulations to Mr. Tunj for the success of International Black Sea University. And it's an honor to be here, and what I am looking forward to is the chance to have some give and take with you, with the students, to answer some of your questions, or try to answer them. So let me speak very, very briefly on the topic that I was asked to talk about, which is the U.S. elections and their impact on U.S.-Georgia relations. And in a way, it's kind of a very easy answer that perhaps there will be no impact on U.S.-Georgia relations. And why is that? Because bipartisan support for Georgia, for strong U.S.-Georgia relations in the United States is bipartisan. It's quite strong. And whether Mitt Romney had become president or President Obama remained president, I think you would have continued to see strong support in the American body politic for what Georgia represents. A country that is trying to find its own path forward with security, with economic arrangements, to be free, and to make its own choices in the world. And so in that sense, I've answered the question, and we could talk about it, but let me just perhaps widen a couple of more points. At a technical level, the fact that President Obama was reelected means that there will be no disruption or minimal disruption in the continuity of the policies of the Obama administration. There will be some changes in personnel. Secretary of State Clinton has indicated she will be leaving. Other senior officials will probably be leaving. But the basic lines of policy will change, and what will not change. And what this means at a technical level is that we can engage from Tbilisi. Georgian officials can engage with American officials immediately. If there had been a change of administration, as you know, there wouldn't be the new president would not take office until January 20th. And you would wait until then to meet the new team, to have the new team appointed, confirmed by the Senate. This would create some delay in the continuity of our relationship. As it stands now, we can talk about getting the new Prime Minister, Mr. Ivanishvili, to Washington in the coming weeks. We can see visits from senior officials back and forth, and with minimal disruption. Assistant Secretary of State Philip Gordon will be arriving tonight for 2 days of meetings. He represents the Obama administration, and that administration is not changing. So from a technical point of view, this is good for us and for U.S.-Georgia relations. In terms of the U.S. elections themselves, you all saw that President Obama was reelected. I don't know if you paid as much attention to the fact that, of course, elections were held for the Senate, House of Representatives, a number of gubernatorial races, governors of states, mayors, city councils, and it's worth trying to pay attention to the broad sweep of American elections this year, and to analyze that. There will be a lot of thought going into what this all means. 20 women were elected to the U.S. Senate, so that is a significant number and something that we all are paying attention to. Finally, let me just say, I think one message from this election is, as you know, in some ways, in Georgia, you have the same issue. It's about the economy. It's about jobs. It's about economic growth. And in the wake of the global financial problems of the last several years, President Obama has felt under tremendous pressure domestically to create create jobs and to get the American economy back on track and to help get the global economy back on track. That involves some very delicate negotiations in the U.S. Congress over U.S. tax policy, the deficit levels in the United States, the national debt. These are all very technical issues, but they're highly, highly political in an environment where the Republican Party has been talking about fiscal conservatism and the Democrats have been talking about needing to spend our way out of these economic problems. My own view is that as a result of this election, you're going to have a more reasoned debate, a less emotional debate in the next few weeks about how to resolve this fiscal, it is a crisis. It is called the fiscal, approaching the fiscal cliff, falling off the cliff. And if it's not resolved by sort of January 3rd, I think is the date, there will be major problems for the U.S. and potentially the global economy. So the fact that this election has sent a message of reasoned debate, of continuity in policies, gives people hope that there will be a rational discussion in Congress and with the White House over the next few weeks so that this very urgent problem can be resolved in a reasonable way. Realizing that there are no magic solutions when you have a trillion-dollar debt and other kinds of multi-trillion-dollar debt and other kinds of major economic issues to contend with. So let me leave it there. And again, really what I'd like to do is take the next 20 minutes or so to try to answer as many questions as I can. And I hope my English is understandable to everybody.
Thank you. Now the students of American Studies Department, bachelor students, you have questions. Please.
Hello, Mr. Ambassador. First of all, thank you for visiting our university. My question is very small. How elections strengthen democracy, not only in the United States, but also in other countries? Thank you.
Well, it sounds like just one small question. But it is, of course, a big question. I mean, when you think about it, elections are remarkable things. Even the President of the United States, one of the most powerful people in the world, he goes to the voters on November 7th and he says, I give all my power to you. And to each individual voter, you get to determine whether I remain in office, whether I continue to command the armed forces of the United States, have my finger on the nuclear button, all the other things that go with being president. That is put in the hands of individual voters, and that's a remarkable thing. So I think you can immediately see that elections are key to the democratic process, but they're not sufficient to sustain a democratic process in and of themselves. I've been in countries where they had elections, but the elections didn't really mean anything. You need a strong civil society, you need free media, you need the ability for people to be able to voice their opinions without fear. And in that sense, building a democratic process is something that takes a lot of time. In our country, it's taken 230 years, and it's still not perfect. It's far from perfect. So in that sense, elections are perhaps the beginning, but not the end of the democratic process, if that's helpful.
Thank you. Another question.
First of all, welcome. Nice to see you again. So my question is a little bit longer. As we know, the electoral system in the United States came about because of tensions between states' rights and federal rights. Do you think that this system works in America, and what values does it reflect?
And what values does it reflect? Yeah. Well, as you know, those of you who are in this American Studies program, the United States consists of 50 states, and in the formation of our republic, and built into the Constitution, was a strong sense that states would have a number of powers, and in fact, the only powers that would go to the federal government were the powers that the states could not handle themselves in the areas of foreign affairs and defense and interstate commerce and so forth. So the Electoral College was set up as a way of balancing the power of states and the power of individual voters. And there are those who say that this Electoral College model is outdated, that it no longer serves the purpose for which it's intended. Why should a large state like California have so much influence? It's out of proportion. But the fact is, any changes to that system would require constitutional amendments. And constitutional amendments are very hard to do. They take votes in Congress, they take referendums, they take years to do. And when you open up the Constitution to one change, you have a lot of people who will say, well, since you're changing that, why don't we also change this? And why don't we also change that? And the next thing you know, you've opened up, as we say, a whole can of worms. And so we saw in the year 2000 a situation where Al Gore won the popular vote, but President George W. Bush won the Electoral College. A lot of people were unhappy about that, but our system is designed in a way that people will respect the decision of the Constitution, of the Electoral College, and people did accept that. And I think I don't think you're going to see any early changes in the way the Electoral College is designed. The value that reflects, the values that reflects, are deep respect for the Constitution and an ingrained understanding that our system fundamentally is based on checks and balances. You've got the executive branch, the judicial branch, and the legislative branch, but you also have states versus, in a way, states versus individuals, and states versus other states, big ones and small ones. And it's all very carefully calibrated in a way, and I don't think you're going to see that changed very easily.
Thank you very much. One more question, please.
Hello, Mr. Ambassador. First of all, thank you for visiting us. And we have attended the election with party on November 7, and it was very important and beneficial for us. And my question is, can you compare the democracy of Georgian election and United States election? And what is your opinion about the strengths and weaknesses of both systems? Thank you.
Oh, that's a big question. First, let me congratulate you on this row is very active with questions here. And
so they were in Marriott last week, so they're full of emotions.
And I'm very impressed by the caliber of the English too that's being spoken here.
Thank you.
So, you know, one thing that I thought was interesting in both elections was that you have people who think that they know the outcome of the election